Shutdown spiraling as the federal shutdown continues with no end in sight. Two New York lawmakers square off in a war of words. Hear from Representative Mike Lawler on the political deadlock. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm Jamie DeLine. Before we get into the shutdown, this week saw Attorney General Letitia James being indicted in a mortgage fraud investigation. According to prosecutors, James is accused of falsifying mortgage documents in order to get favorable terms on her loan for a home in Norfolk, Virginia. A grand jury returned 2 counts for bank fraud and making false statements. James' first court appearance is set for the end of this month. Attorney General James responded to the indictment saying, quote, "We will fight these baseless charges aggressively, and my office will continue to fiercely protect New Yorkers and their rights." Also this week, the federal government shutdown continuing into the weekend. No significant progress has been made this week to end the political deadlock. As the standoff continues, hundreds of thousands of federal employees are either working without pay or are furloughed. The IRS this week furloughed nearly half of its workforce. Democrats say they won't reopen the government until Republicans negotiate an extension of the health care tax credits set to expire later this year. The impasse between Democrats and Republicans boiling over in the halls of the Capitol. New York Congressman Mike Lawler and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries got into a heated argument when Lawler waited for Jeffries after a press event. The two lawmakers talking over each other, both blaming the other side for the delay in the government reopening. Take a listen.
It's unfortunate.
Don't come with this phony.
These are bills. These are bills. They're not phony.
It's not a bill that Republicans are even prepared to bring to the floor.
There's 11 Republicans on it. There's 4 Democrats. It's a bipartisan bill to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. If you believe in it so much,
math?
why won't you sign on to it?
Do you understand math?
Joining me now to give additional insight on the ongoing government shutdown is Representative Mike Lawler, a Republican representing the 17th Congressional District. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So are we anywhere close to a deal? Is there an end in sight when it comes to this government shutdown?
Unfortunately, it doesn't appear so. Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer seem intent on keeping the government shut down. As I'll remind you, we voted 3 weeks ago to pass a clean, continuing resolution to keep the government funded through the House. Every New York Democrat voted no. They voted to shut the government down. And now Senators Schumer and Gillibrand and Senate Democrats are blocking that same CR in the Senate and refusing to let it pass. So the government looks like it's going to stay closed for a while. Our military, our Border Patrol, our federal employees are not going to be paid. Critical programs like WIC and SNAP are in jeopardy of losing the federal funding that it needs to help people who rely on those programs. So this is really unconscionable. And as far as I'm concerned, there's a very simple way to fix it. Chuck Schumer needs to vote with Republicans to open the government back up. And that way we can actually do our jobs, deal with the issues impacting the American people, and negotiate over a final spending package, as well as issues like the Affordable Care Act subsidies.
Now, I know both sides are blaming each other for the shutdown, but is there any common ground?
Look, I have signed on to legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies by a year. There's 14 Republicans, 11 Democrats that are signed on to the bill. And that's part of what I tried to impress upon Leader Jeffries earlier this week. Sign on to the bill. Let's get it done. You say this is an issue that you want to address, then let's do it. But the fact is, that's not really why the government shut down. Unfortunately, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are petrified of primaries from AOC and folks close to Zohran Mamdani. And they're trying to appease their radical left base and show them that they're fighting President Trump and fighting Republicans. But really all they're doing is hurting the American people. So I think we can find consensus on critical issues, but you got to open up the government. You can't try to hold the American people hostage or try to negotiate at the end of a barrel.
Would you say health insurance premiums are the main holdup here?
No, as I said, I think this is really being driven by the Democrats' base and them trying to appease them. The issue of health care premiums is an important one. By the way, since Obamacare took effect, health care premiums nationwide have risen by over 60%. So if Obamacare was intended to reduce health care costs and reduce health insurance premiums, why is it that they've grown by 60%? And the only way seemingly to keep them affordable is to add a tax subsidy. Now, I support extending this by a year, but we have to figure out how to deal with this long term, because Americans should not be seeing double-digit health care premium increases year over year, even with these subsidies. And that really is the fundamental issue here to me from how to tackle that. It requires a long-term solution, not just throwing a tax subsidy at it. So I'm open to a short-term fix here while we actually address the larger issue, but you got to open up the government. And I think that's really what the American people want. They don't want the government shut down.
Do you think that federal employees will get back pay after all of this is said and done?
Yes, I do, and I certainly support that. I'm opposed to any effort not to give them their back pay. This is not their fault. They have a job to do. They do it well. This is the fault of House and Senate Democrats refusing to pass a clean CR, which, by the way, under Joe Biden, they passed 13 times. They lectured everybody about the need to keep the government open and funded. I did it as a Republican, pushing back against my own party when Joe Biden was president, and I'm doing it now because shutting down the government is idiotic. So we should get back to work, open the government up, make sure everybody who was furloughed gets paid, and make sure that the resources are there for all of these departments and agencies so they can do their jobs.
Is there a realistic timeline as to when this could all move forward?
It doesn't look promising right now, and unfortunately, the pay period is on the 15th, and it looks like we're going to blow past that. Again, Republicans passed funding to fund our troops, fund Border Patrol, fund all of our federal employees and agencies 3 weeks ago. So there really was no need for this. This is unconscionable. But right now it doesn't look promising. And, this may go on for weeks at this point.
What do you say to the American people who are on both sides of the aisle fed up with how politics currently are going here in the United States?
They should be. They should be. There's no need for this. Look, I've always been consistent when it comes to a government shutdown. The only people that get hurt are the American people. This does not help anybody. I voted 8 times during Joe Biden's presidency to keep the government funded and open. I voted multiple times under Donald Trump. Regardless of who the president is, the American people expect us to do our jobs. They expect us to keep the lights on. They expect us to pay our bills. It's not asking for much. So they're right to be frustrated. I think the hypocrisy in politics obviously drives people crazy, and it should. And I think all of us have a responsibility to be consistent regardless of who's the president or which party is in power. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and you can't change your view simply because you're in the minority.
All right, we'll have to leave it right there. Congressman Mike Lawler, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
One of the key issues in this government shutdown is medical spending and cuts to health programs. When we return, hear from Congressman Paul Tonko about the shutdown, what he says Democrats are focusing on as the shutdown continues. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. As we continue to follow the impacts of the ongoing government shutdown, Democrats continue to push the issue of health care. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand saying this week if current health care subsidies expire, then health care premiums and copays will increase for New Yorkers. Congressman Paul Tonko making similar health care arguments at the recent virtual town hall. I caught up with a congressman to discuss the shutdown and its impacts. So, Congressman, I know both sides of the aisle are blaming this shutdown on each other. Is there any end in sight?
Well, I hope so. I think that as the public continues to build pressure on this process, we need to listen and respond. The Republicans, as we all know, uh, are fully in charge here. They occupy the White House, the majority in each of the houses of Congress, and it's their responsibility to get the budget bill through. The fault here is that we have not had a negotiated outcome. This is a partisan bill passed by the majority in the House, and they anticipated that they would do the same in the Senate. That didn't happen. But if we really want to get this done, it takes all parties to be involved, all four corners of Congress and the president. And he needs to bring us together in order to complete this process. But they could get this budget bill done tomorrow if they so chose. But they are in charge completely. White House, House, Senate, all under their control.
Is there any common ground on any of these issues that are being discussed?
Well, I would hope so. I think, the attack on affordability by this administration needs to stop. And I think that members of both parties in both houses, there are a number of us that believe that affordability is a big issue. Affordability here for healthcare, which has been in the news every day since this budget process started, is a prime concern for many, including myself. And, we need to work that through so that the affordability and accessibility to quality healthcare is provided for, since I believe, and the general public believes, it's a right, not just a unique option, but it's a guaranteed right, we believe, in our American culture.
Would you say that healthcare premiums are the main holdup here when it comes to the shutdown?
I think it's part of it. There are a number of things, when you cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid, and when you impact by $500 billion the Medicare situation, and do not reauthorize the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act premiums, you're going to have a disaster. And, instead of addressing the issues, they misrepresented their bill. I might say they lied about it because it was brought to their attention time and time again. And they wanted to contend that the 15 million people taken off of welfare were all illegal immigrants, or what is the word they use, illegal aliens. Well, undocumented immigrants do not qualify for the Affordable Care Act, for Medicaid, or Medicare. And they need to tell the story straight. So that bold-faced lie did not help in negotiations, or to bring us to the negotiating table, better said.
Do you think that federal workers will be able to get back pay once this is all said and done?
They absolutely should. I think the president, utilizing this moment, this tension, and this lack of responsiveness by the leadership here at the Republican Party, is just adding to tension. He knows that they should be paid, and suggests that some, by his choosing, will not get paid. So part of the effort here to negotiate and bring us together has got to rein in the lawlessness of this president and the administration. There are legislatively intended investments made by the House and the Senate, and that separation of powers, which he looks to shred. He's constantly moving to shred the separation of powers, and that has to stop. The House has the power of the purse, and that's an intended outcome by our framers and founders. And it provides for that check and balance that is essential with the executive branch. He doesn't regard that and wants to assert power and invest that power in one person. That's not going to work. So, he needs to indicate to our federal workers they will be paid in the outcome of this whole budget negotiation. And, that's been a bone of contention. He has suggested that some that have been asked to go without pay will not get that pay later. He's also utilizing this to further threaten the workforce, which is not helpful.
Do you think that there's a timeline as to when we can see this end?
I would hope we could get it done in the ensuing days and week ahead. There's work to be done here. You need enough time to get that done. But they have not called us into session. We have been since mid-September without coming in for votes on this budget. And they're saying, well, when the Senate approves the package, again, we tell them, remind them, it's a partisan bill that was put together by the majority. And if you want our support of that bill, of the budget bill, we need to sit at that table and negotiate. And that opportunity was not brought our way.
Do you know when the next vote could happen?
I know that they have canceled votes for Tuesday, and so it won't happen until at least Tuesday. But I should be in D.C. working. I came back to the district to meet with the press corps, and share with them my concerns with this budget process, with the final package that has been presented that I voted against. And, I cannot accept going forward without addressing the affordability crisis that this country is facing. And it happens to be a really difficult affordability issue when it comes to healthcare. The forecast here of 400% increases for some, as an example, is an intolerable outcome. And we need to fight back, and we need to all push hard here, regardless of party, regardless of assignment to either the Congress or to the House or the U.S. Senate. We need to be there on behalf of the public, as should the president.
What do you say to the Americans on both sides of the aisle that are just fed up with how politics is being done here in the United States?
Well, I think that rule of law, respect for the Constitution, an acknowledgement that there are separation of powers by those of us in office is a beginning point. I think we need to let the public know that we understand that and act accordingly. We haven't seen that here. We have a runaway bit of lawlessness. You think of some of the things that have been changed. They claim this is a clean CR, and it is not. They have decided that they can take away various investments that have been made with the public broadcasting situation. For one, the president comes in and just assumes he is going to take those dollars, sweep them from the respective programs, and invest them how he so chooses. The power of the purse rests with Congress. And if you don't acknowledge the separation of powers, it's going to be very difficult to come to a negotiated outcome. But let's begin with negotiations. That's all I ask. And let's make certain that we address the affordability crisis that they have been driving and address that so that healthcare is indeed affordable and that it's quality.
All right, we'll have to leave it right there. Congressman Paul Tonko, thank you so much for making time to talk with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Jamie, I would just say this too. There are those who want to address this negotiation from the outside, work it, in fact, through the press at times. And so if you have situations where they want to introduce a bill and say, well, we should extend this piece of the healthcare equation for a year. We can't do the piecemeal negotiations on the outside. We need to be at that common table and deal with it holistically. And it's important for us to make certain that those tax credits are reauthorized and that we address the huge draconian cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. Otherwise, tens of millions of people will be knocked off of health care, and tens of millions will be asked to pay exponentially more. And that is just not a good outcome. It's not a morally sound budget if that's allowed to happen.
We'll have to see what happens in the upcoming days. Congressman, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Candidates in New York City's mayoral race taking steps to address the issues city residents care about. When we return, the change the current frontrunner is looking to bring to the city's transit system. Reporter Henry Rossoff brings the details. The race for New York's governor is still more than a year away. While several names are still circling around the ballot to take on Governor Kathy Hochul, polling is already underway to give a glimpse at what the race may look like. According to a poll commissioned by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's Political Action Committee, Governor Hochul's lead over Stefanik is only by 5 points. The poll also finding a majority of voters think a new person should be governor. That poll differing from a Siena poll released only a few weeks ago. It finds Hochul leading by 25 points, with 52% of those polled saying they would like to stay with Hochul. Meanwhile, 27% said they would vote for Stefanik. Siena pollster Steve Greenberg noting a poll like Siena's is just a snapshot in time.
There's all kinds of pollsters. There are partisan pollsters. There are pollsters who do work for Democratic candidates or Republican candidates.
Stick around. We'll be back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit. Finally, on Empire State Weekly, the state is looking to provide more homes to low and moderate income home buyers as part of the Move In New York program. The initiative uses prefabricated factory-built homes, which can be built and installed faster and for cheaper than traditional homes. After trying out the program in Schenectady, Syracuse, and the town of Newcomb, the state is looking to expand it and bring 200 more homes to residential areas statewide. Next week, we'll hear from the Homes and Community Renewal Division on how this program can help those in need. For now, from all of us here on Empire State Weekly, I'm Jamie DeLine. We'll see you here next week. And don't forget, you can watch Empire State Weekly all over New York State. Here's the full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 television stations across New York.